Good evening. Great to have you all out here. My office has worked very hard to be as supportive of Chief Helmick and the fire district as we can be. We had a couple fires, a bigger fire that was several fires in one day, and we got a lot of calls from our constituents in Discovery Bay. And so one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure we came out here as soon as possible was to be able to give you answers. And I think you're going to find some real information from Chief Helmick tonight. Every time I see these, I learn something new. So I'm really appreciating Chief Helmick and his leadership and the leadership of the Fire Protection Board. So thank you for all you do. And let me introduce a rock star, someone that's really dedicated to serving our community, Chief Brian Helmick.
Well, good evening. Again, yes, I'm Brian Helmick, the Fire Chief for East Contra Costa Fire, and I just want to thank all of you for being out here tonight. I know that this topic, the fire service in East Contra Costa and for the Fire Protection District, is a very big topic. So as we get started here tonight, there's a lot of information, and this information is going to be reported. I'll talk to you here for a second, and you can always go back and reference it. But again, I just really want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank for the Discovery Bay board to be here, and also for my board members to be here. Throughout the evening and as you move forward, our board members are available to you. I'm available to you. I can guarantee you I'm not going to address all of the questions that you may have about the fire district tonight, but I do believe I'll be able to give you a lot of information that will really define where we've been, where we are, and where it is we're going. I know there's probably some very specific questions in regards to the community and incidents that have happened around here, and we will have a question and answer session at the end. So for tonight, what you have behind you is the agenda for tonight. What I'm looking to do is tell you a little bit about who we are. I will be doing the state of the district. I will be going over response times and discussing why they're important, and also why our response times are so long. I'll also discuss a lot of the current actions that the district is going through to try to remedy those situations. And I'll discuss with you next steps, and we'll spend about half of the time going through a question and answer session. Some of the housekeeping things I want to go through as we move through here is, again, this presentation, we're on FaceTime Live, so we have been trying to get the information out. We've been trying to share it in as many ways as we possibly can. We know that there's a lot of questions on what's going on. We're trying to make sure that we keep people updated with relevant, up-to-date, and factual information. I have been presenting at or one of my designees, another battalion chief, at the Discovery Bay meetings on a regular basis. We go once a month. We provide updates on a regular basis. And so really what this is continuing the story. There's no ask here tonight. The district is not asking for anything. We're just trying to educate and let people know where we are, where we're going, and where we've been. Secondarily, on the back of the room, there are a lot of handouts. There's handouts to leave behind about frequently asked questions, prevention information. My business cards are back there. You'll find my business cards. It has my cell phone number on there, my email on there. And please grab that information when you go. At the very end, as I discussed, we will be having a question and answer session. You can see there's flashcards sitting on your chair. They're colored. At any point, as you're going through, if you would like to write down what your question is, it can be anonymous. And at the very end, I'll ask to pass them down to the aisles and raise them up. We will collect them, we'll break them up by category, and I'll do the best I can to address all the questions that you have here tonight. So I'm going to try to get this information down over the next 40 minutes. There is a lot of information here again, and it's going to be somewhat fast, but that's why we have a Q&A at the very end. So I want to talk to you a little bit about who we are, and almost more importantly, who we are not. We are confused regularly of being Contra Costa County Fire, which is our neighboring fire agency, and we are the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District. I'll be talking about our governance, I'll be talking about geographical areas that we serve, but again, we are the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District. We are not part of Contra Costa County Fire. Secondarily is that we are an independent special district, so we are governed by ourselves. We are not part of the city of Oakley, we're not part of the city of Brentwood. We are not part of Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors. We are governed by ourselves, by our board, but we are not part of those entities. We do serve those communities, but we are not attached to them outside of providing them service. And so those are really important facts because a lot of folks will speak to either the city councils and or the board of supervisors, and they'll point to have them address what it is that we're doing. And again, the fire district has to take charge on initiatives that we have because we govern ourselves, and we have a board to be able to do that. Today we have a board of 9 appointed members, and this has been a problem for the district. We've been consolidated since 2002. We were primarily a volunteer organization at the time. Brentwood, Discovery Bay, and Byron had a full-time department, but they only had 2 personnel on the engine companies at that time. That's when I came into the agency, is when we had 2-person engine companies. I worked at the station here at 58, I worked in the station at Byron, I've worked in Brentwood, I've worked at Bethel Island, I've worked at all those firehouses. We consolidated in 2002 because the growth was pretty extreme around here, and it still is. We've seen it, we've experienced the growth. And the volunteer system wasn't able to keep up with the growth in the area, and they consolidated a bunch of the organizations together, and they tried to minimize duplicated efforts between each of the agencies. When we came, at that time, we were dependent, which means we were governed by the Board of Supervisors, and we worked to become an independent special district, and that's where the appointed 9 members came in. So who appoints them? It's all decided by population, is that we have 4 of our board members are appointed by the city of Brentwood. The city of Brentwood has approximately 60,000 of the residents of our jurisdiction are within Brentwood. There are 3 members that are appointed from the city of Oakley, and they have about 40,000 residents in that area, plus or minus. And then there are 2 members that are appointed by the Contra County Board of Supervisors. So when we went to be an independent special district with our governance of 9 appointed members, folks have said, hey, listen, if you really want to do anything, we want there to be an elected board. We want there to be an elected board that is held accountable by the citizens that elect them into their positions. And just recently, if you recall, we did a measure, it was called Measure A, that asked the public for the approval to reduce our board from 9 to 5. It passed at 91% earlier this year, and we are going to an elected board in November. So those that are interested in running, you can file for papers in July and August. We'll know everyone that's going to be running for those positions. And by January of 2019, we have an elected board of 5. And that's really important for local control and governance within the area. Our mission as a fire district is to preserve and protect life, environment, and the property with service above all else, and that is our chief cause. That's what the fire board works on every day. As the fire chief, that's what I work on every single day, and we're an all-risk fire department. So when anyone calls 911, we may not have the resources to be able to adequately mitigate the type of emergency that comes in with the resources that we have. But when we respond to incidents, we have to be able to identify and recognize the type of an incident, request other resources. A lot of the times it's from outside or other agencies because we don't have the resources. But again, we respond to all incidents. It can be a residential structure fire, an accident with rescue, it can be from an airplane accident, it can be a water rescue, it can be a trench rescue, a confined space, high angle, you name it. We go and we provide resources to come to us and mitigate it. And we are primary responders for EMS, rescue, and fire. That's our chief cause, and that's what we do. We have a very large jurisdiction. And when tonight, one thing you're going to hear me continue to repeat is that we are a system. We are a system. No community is independent of itself. And I'm going to drive home why that's a fact here in a little bit. We cover 250 square miles in our jurisdiction. So we cover everything from the border of Antioch to the border of Clayton to the border of San Ramon Valley to the Alameda County line on Vasco Road to Tracy and to the Old River Bridge right here in Discovery Bay. About 100 miles of waterways along that surrounds us, and that's 250 square miles all the way around us. And we also cover the Marsh Creek Morgan Territory area. So you can imagine driving from here to Clayton, from here to Livermore, from here to Tracy, and just regular commute time traffic, you understand how time and distance can compromise us. We have a population of 115,000 people. Again, you have about 60,000 in Brentwood, 40,000 in Oakley, approximately 12,000, 13,000 in Discovery Bay, and we have other pockets of areas between 1,000 in Knightson, Bethel Island, and Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory, Byron, and it adds up to approximately 115,000. In 2020, the census will be done, and that number is going to increase. That's with the last census where we were. In regards to our call volume, we ran last year 7,530 calls. but it took us 9,000 pieces of fire equipment to be able to mitigate those emergencies. So for every incident, sometimes it takes more than one piece of equipment to mitigate it. We have to send 5 resources to a residential structure fire. And so obviously, 7,530 calls, we needed 9,000 units to be able to mitigate those incidents. We have 3 staff firehouses to be able to cover that area, serve that population, and be able to mitigate that call volume. The communities that we serve, as I previously just stated, Oakley, Brentwood, Bethel Island, Knightson, Byron, Discovery Bay, Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory. So when we talk about service levels and what we do and where we go, it's a lot larger than any one community. Because as a fire district, we serve them all, and we have to find the best way to operate and cover them all the best that we possibly can. As you can see on this map, and you can see that we have 3 fire stations today. We have one on O'Hara Avenue in Oakley, that's station 53. The fire station nearest to us right now is at the intersection of Pointed Timber and Bixler Road, that's station 59. And then in Brentwood, off of John Muir Parkway in Balfour, is station 52. Those are the 3 staff firehouses that we have. Each one of those houses has 3 members on each day. They cross-staff different pieces of an equipment. They have a Type 1, which is a residential structure firefighting engine. You'll see that we call it the pavement clean. That's what's driving down the road. It says that's where we go to vehicle accidents and structure fires. They also have an off-road unit, what we call a Type 3 piece of equipment to be able to do wildland type fires. And then we have what is a water tender. It shuttles around 3,000 gallons of water. Our members will cross-staff those, and what they will do to be able to run the incidents is that they will, when an incident comes in, it's a residential structure, they'll take the Type 1 engine and they'll take the water tender with them if it's an unhydrogen area. A large majority of our jurisdiction does not have fire hydrants. And that obviously impacts our operations and creates some complexities, but we've been able to work through that because that's always been our situation. Our revenue, and this is the revenue for 18-19. So we just approved a preliminary budget going for 18-19. It will start on July 1. We will finalize it and we'll approve the final budget in September. But we have $16.2 million in revenue. As you can see from the pie chart, it's hard to see, I'll explain it. But the grayish area, the largest portion, says 91% comes from property taxes. But you also have the Byron-Bethany Irrigation District. There was monies that were allocated to Byron-Bethany. They identified they weren't providing services to this area. The monies went back to the county. The county decided where it was going to go. Due to our need, they reallocated it towards fire. And so that's why if you add the 91% of property taxes and the Byron-Bethany, it brings us up to about 96% of where our revenue comes from. We have some other smaller fees. We have a community facility district. It's a CFD, a community facility district in Summer Lakes in Oakley. We also partner with another one in Bethel Island. We get about 2% of our revenue from that. And we have some other smaller ones that do about 2%. We have a first responder fee that we collect on medical aids that we run. It gets us we recover about through insurance companies about $50,000 a year right now. And we also have Measure H funds that come through the county to mitigate and take care of our medical supplies. So what's important to know about this is that 96% of our revenue comes from Proposition 13. And it's we get 1% of the property tax, we get approximately 8% of that 1%. And I'm going to go into that and explain why that matters and how it comes in and how it's part of the issue that we're trying to manage. In 2008, when the housing bubble happened, it reduced our revenue by 40%. Today, we're back up countywide. We're back up 98% of full recovery of where we were, but that was 10 years ago. So although we recovered where we are, and that we've recovered at the rates where we were then, 10 years has passed. Our expenses have continued to increase over those 10 years, and so has our call volume. And so although we are back to where we were, again, the cost of doing business has continued to increase. Our expenses are about $14.5 million in expenses. It takes about $4.5 million, between $4 and $5 million to operate one firehouse. It takes approximately $3 million to do. Some folks have recommended, well, why don't you do a squad concept or do a two-person company? That's right around $3 million. So it's between 4 to 5 for a station, fully staffed, fully burdened, and it's about close to $3 million to do a 2-person squad concept. Right now we have 3 fully staffed stations. We do have revenue over our expenditures. And we're not going into it tonight, but I encourage all of you to go to our website and go to About the District, Transparency and Finance. We have a whole section on our website that you can get in. We have a 6-page budget document that talks about an overview of revenue or expenditures. And you can go in and look into fine line detail of where our revenue is. So we do have revenue over our expenditures, but we do not have enough to be able to staff sustainably a 4-station. On our expenses, you can see the 70% is into our personnel costs. That's normal between 70 and 80% of all public safety agencies. It goes to personnel costs. That's not unique to us. And there's other services, supplies, and one-time charges. You can see what they are there. But again, $14.5 million in expenses. It takes about $4.5 million per station to be able to open and staff a new station. So let's get into what the problem is. What is the problem statement, and why are we having troubles being able to provide adequate services within our jurisdiction? The bottom line is it boils down to that emergency response times are far beyond industry standards. Time and distance is compacting us. This is not a debatable statement. On our website, if you go and click on the link, if you go to this presentation and click on the link, it'll take you to all the studies that validate that this is the issue that we have, response times. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why response times impact us, and I'll unfold it a little bit, and I can address more questions at the end if you haven't. The Citygate report that we did a headquarters and staffing study. You may have heard that it was being called a master plan, and it's really not a plan at all. It's a study, it's a headquarters and staffing study that identified, or it was a needs analysis. It identified the resources we have, it identified the gap of what we need, and they gave us recommended service levels that we should try to meet as an agency. The 2016 Citygate report found that we need 9 stations to meet 4-minute travel times in urban areas and 8-minute travel times in suburban and rural areas. And as you know, we have 3 stations today. And so the response times, and I'm going to talk about travel times and response times and break it down so hopefully it's clearly understandable and you can understand exactly where I'm coming from. But the response times are important simply because they save lives and they also save property. And that's what our chief purpose is to try to do, is mitigate both of those. But right now, the resource levels we have, it is very difficult, and it's primarily due to time and distance. So the fire service, why is it important? And why is time and distance important is you have to look at it in 2 ways, and this is a key point. You have to look at it because we look at 2 separate things. We look at speed, and we look at speed of response, how fast we can get there, and we look at the weight of the response. How many resources can we get there? So when someone calls 911, depending upon the incident, if you're having a medical aid, it's imperative that we get there someone as fast as we possibly can. If your house is on fire and or if you're in an accident that needs rescue, it's imperative that we get enough resources there, the manpower and the equipment to mitigate the incident. So when you look at a system, you've got to look at the speed of the response and the weight of response. And the time and distance that we have impacts both of them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about how with medicals and how in fires, speed and weight play a factor into how we provide our services. So if you can't see it on the screen, let me break it down for you. But this is the response time standards. These are the recommendations that the study that we had strongly recommended that we try to meet. It talks about urban, suburban, and rural. And so let me attach communities' names to those areas so you're able to figure out what that means. The suburban areas in our jurisdiction, that's going to be Brentwood and Oakley. The urban, is going to be Brentwood and Oakley. The suburban is going to be Discovery Bay. And the rural areas are going to be Bethel Island, Knightson, Byron, Marsh Creek, and Morgan Territory. The total response time in those areas is recommended for the urban areas The urban areas, which again is Oakley and Brentwood, that we have a total response time of approximately 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Thank you. 7 minutes and 30 seconds. The previous slide talked about travel time, so that's once the dispatch occurs, we get dressed, we get on the road, and how long it takes us to travel. It recommends in those areas that we should travel in about 4 minutes. And in Discovery Bay, they recommend we should travel no more than 8 minutes. But a total response time of 11 minutes and 30 seconds. And in the Byron areas, again, the travel time should be no more than 12 minutes, and the total response time should be no more than 15 minutes and 30 seconds. Why is that important? Because when it comes down to our areas, and this is all available again on our website, we do reports every month, update not only annually what's done, but monthly what's done. Is that we have calls for service in Brentwood, Discovery Bay, Byron, Oakley, Knights, and Bethlehem, Marsh Creek, Oregon Territory. As I stated before, we have our call volume of 7,530. You have the 90th response times, so that's our response times and the times that we're responding right now, and then the industry standards that are off to the far side on the right, as I previously discussed. And you can see that our response times are substantially higher than this year, and this is why it's important. When it comes down to medical aids, if you're involved into a trauma, now a trauma means you can fall off a ladder, you can be stuck in a vehicle accident, anything that causes injury to you. If you have internal bleeding and you need to go to a hospital and you need to have surgery to mitigate the bleeding or the trauma, whatever it is. And this slide may be hard to see, and don't be so consumed about it, but this is something that's been proven in a lot of studies. It's not really debatable, but there's something called the golden hour, and that's what this slide represents. The golden hour states that from the time the injury occurs, and if it takes you longer than an hour to get into surgery, if surgery is needed, the mortality rate increases rapidly. And so time and distance, if it takes us a long time for you to activate 911, for us to respond, and us to get to you, to get you packaged, get you to the hospital, we lose lives due to time. Not so much how long it took us to get there, but how long it took us to get to the hospital and the time frame it takes for you to get treated. So the golden hour is important, and that is how it impacts in trauma versus time. With medicals and strokes, it's the same way. We have an hour. We really need to get on scene and start providing treatment within 15 minutes. We need to get you to a facility that can be able to treat you effectively. And it's amazing these days what hospitals can do, what we can do with medicines to make sure that you don't have long-term deficits due to strokes. But we got to get that scene quick. We have to recognize what it is. We have to get medications on board and get you to the right facility. If we miss that window of an hour, you're going to have deficits and or up to death, and it goes up very rapidly. And that's only two types of emergencies, but cardiac arrest, brain death can begin in 4 minutes if you're not breathing. Okay? So when it comes down to medicals and or traumas, it's really important for us to be able to identify that we get there as fast as we can, and time and distance, speed and weight. Because in traumas, sometimes we need more than 2 pieces of equipment to land a helicopter or to extricate somebody from a vehicle, and it takes us time to be able to do that. So it's not only speed, but it's weight of the resources into the system. And medical aid is the same thing. We need to get there quick. How does that impact us with fires? So fire doubles its size every 2 minutes. No matter how small it is or how big it is when it starts, it will double its size in every 2 minutes. It may be hard to read, and that's okay, because I'll explain it to you. But within 7 to 9 minutes, a normal room trash can fire that extends to a bed, that extends to drapes, starts extending up the walls. Within 7 minutes, that room will be fully consumed in flame. It does something that's called flashover. If anyone's inside of a flashover fire, it is not survivable. At a point, if we look for conditions as we make interior fire attack, we start watching for flashover conditions, and that's when we'll exit buildings if we can't be able to mitigate the environment within the building. But in 7 minutes, 7 to 9 minutes, a room can go from a very small fire to having a flashover. So it's really important that we get there quick, be able to mitigate, because fire double size every 2 minutes. And in structure fires, we don't only need the speed, but we need the weight to be able to mitigate the incident. So we have 3 units. We have 3 units within our organization right now. We lean upon Contra Costa County Fire to fill any responses we have. If they're not available, we'll go to Tracy Fire. If they're not available, we'll go to Alameda County Fire. We've had incidents where we've had resources from San Ramon Valley and Moraga River. because we have to go deep into the pool because the system is busy. This is a very important point on the screen that talks about the weight of an incident, because it takes us 5 resources to be able to just handle a simple single room of content incident. There's a lot of activities that we do. When they arrive at scene, we have water supply, fire attack, ventilation. We have exposure lines if there's any other occupancies that are impacted, and we have search and rescue that needs to be mitigated. But it takes 5 engine companies at least. If it's a multi-story residential, or if it gets into a second occupancy, we'll need to double the response. So obviously the faster we can get there, the smaller it is. That's where the speed comes in. The weight of the response is very important because we can't do all of these tasks without the resources. And let me also explain this. That when it comes down to the weight of an incident and the resource to be able to get there quick, it's very important because this is the deal. When we arrive at scene, we're all trained to risk a lot to save a lot. And if there's a life safety rescue, we're going to go in with 1 engine at scene. If we know there's a viable life, we'll go in with 1 engine at scene. If there is not a life rescue situation, we identify that everyone is at the home, and it's just a property situation, we have to reassess how we're going to approach the incident. And the reason being is that if we get compromised, if we go into a home because it's burning and it's in the basement and the floor fails, or we go in and the roof fails and one of our members get compromised, it's our members that have to rescue them. And so if we have 5 units at scene and we need to call for help, help is most likely coming from Long Creek. And the survivability rates are poor at best. So when we arrive at scene, we have to make some very calculated and strategic decisions. And our company officers are trained in this. Again, we're in rescue mode until proven otherwise. So when we arrive at scene of any incident, we need speed and we need weight. We need resources in the system to get there as fast as we can, because we got to do those duties to identify. Are we going to go offensive, which means that we're going to go in and get it, which minimizes life risk, it minimizes property loss, and or do we have to stay from the outside and fight in? And that has to do purely with the resources we have available. Because if there's not a life safety value, we can't send our members in and get them to a point where they're compromised, because we don't have the resources to save them. And so the offensive versus defensive decision, and this is what we've trained with all of our members over the past year. This is something that we've been trying to discuss and we've been working on every day, is that we're in rescue mode until proven otherwise. Once we identify there's no life safety risk, we pause, we reassess, we look where the rest of the resources are, and we make calculated decisions to progress further from that point to assure if we get compromised, our members can go home safe. But it does lose more property. And so more resources faster, it's very beneficial. So what causes the response times? As you can see on the left-hand side, those 3 helmets is today. That's the resources we have within our system today. On the right-hand side, that is what the recommended stations at full build-out. And let me be clear, we're not at full build-out. We don't need 9 stations today. We need 9 stations at full build-out. I'll discuss here in a minute that we really need between 5 to 7 stations, and we're going through a strategic plan right now. We're trying to identify exactly what that is, and by December we'll be able to identify what that is. But we need an additional 3 to 4 stations in our system today to be able to meet the response times that I previously discussed. So we have too much resources, too much area, not enough resources. We don't have the funding to increase resources. And so we've had to make some very challenging decisions. So on the bottom of the screen, it says triage the type of calls. A lot of folks don't know, but we have, and I have, and the staff, our operational staff, we've made a lot of changes to our system. 80% of our calls are medical aids. Our issue, our response time for medical aids are within the county-wide standards of what they should be. The issue that we have is a fire and rescue situation. We probably had about 30 calls within our jurisdiction today, of which there were only ambulance-only responses. So we only send ambulances to those incidents. So our district may say that we only ran 10 calls today, but there's been 30 emergencies within our jurisdiction today. And the reason that is that when I came into the position, the previous chief, we've been working very hard to be very calculated on what we send resources to. And so I want to get kind of the weeds a little bit real quick, but we have what is called, we triage all of our calls. An A type of call, it's an alpha call. It's something where someone says they have foot pain, they've had it for about 3 months, and they call 911 because they want to come look at it. It's not a life safety issue. You go A, B, C, D, E to an E, and an echo call is someone that my loved one isn't breathing. And so obviously if we have a bunch of A calls and one E call, we're going to the E call first, we're going to A calls, and we'll prioritize them. East Contra Costa Fire, we only respond to echoes, Charlies, and echoes, Charlies, and some deltas. And we will go to echoes, deltas, and some Charlies, I should say. Agencies throughout Contra Costa County go for echoes all the way through the alphas. They go to all types. We send ambulances to certain types of calls that are triaged, and we say, if you need us, call us. So we have minimized where we send engines to. And some people say, why do you send fire engines to everything? We don't. I wish we did. Because here's the deal, when someone calls 911, a lot of the times it's miscategorized, it's not triaged appropriately, and the ambulances arrive at scene with shortness of breath, ends up being respiratory arrest that leads to cardiac arrest, and it's very detrimental. Sending engines to every call is beneficial. Secondarily, the reason we take an engine on every call is because we have it's our platform for all of our operations. When ambulances go to calls, they are going to treat you and they're going to transport you. They're not going to extricate you. They're not going to rescue you. They're not going to put you out if you're on fire. That's what the fire department does. The fire department is going to rescue you. We're going to extricate you. We're going to put out the fire. We're going to mitigate the risk. We're going to help package you. And sometimes we will go with the ambulance if they need to treat you. So when ambulances arrive at scene, what they do is they will call us if they need us, and or they'll wait for us to rescue you to get you in the back of the ambulance, and we will go with you. So what's important to note is a lot of people say, hey, you need to change your service models. We have. You need to send engines only where they need to go. We do. And that is another layer of a reduced service that people just don't see. If anyone subscribes to an app called Pulse Point, you can see it every single day. If you subscribe to Pulse Point, you can monitor our calls, you can listen to our dispatch, you can listen to our communications, and even if you were to look up to it right now, and you look at everything from 8 o'clock this morning that came in, you'll probably see 20 calls that's only one ambulance assigned to it, no fire engine. And then you'll see the incidents that have fire engines assigned to it. That's not the way we want to do business, that's the way we have to do business. So I feel we're trying to do the best we can with what we have in regards to response times. So again, speed and weight, we need more resources, we don't have enough funding, and it's very important. So what have we done to try to mitigate this? We have attempted to do parcel taxes, we have attempted to do benefit assessments, we've attempted a utility tax, we had the cities do a utility tax, which would have passed through and gone to the fire district. We have also tried short-term solutions, which end up being very critically negative to the district. We did some memorandums of understandings with the city and the county. We did short-term grants. And why were they detrimental to us? We have a situation where today, our members in our organization for succession planning purposes, we do not have one employee that has been employed for 5 years and 1 day up to 10 years. We have a 5-year gap where we lost everyone. Today we have 27 firefighters. Since 2010, we've lost over 40. And the reasons are very simple and clear. The memorandums of understanding, the grants, and doing 4 stations at all costs, and that's what we're doing, is taking all of our revenue over expenditures to keep a 4th station open. And what we couldn't afford, we were doing grants, we were doing MOUs. Those grants and MOUs are short-term funding, so they're for 1 year or 2 year, and they would expire. So everybody that we would hire underneath a grant or an MOU, they would come in and we would say, hey, listen, you have an employment, but it's only for 2 years unless the district can find a solution for long-term sustainable revenue. And I don't think it matters what industry you work for, if you're a doctor, plumber, pilot, painter, dentist, is that if you get hired in a position and they say that your job is only secured for 2 years, you're going to look for jobs elsewhere that can provide you permanent stability. Secondarily is our members were paid approximately 40% to 50% less than all other agencies in Contra Costa County. So when you have members come in your organization and you say, you have temporary employment, unless we can find a long-term sustainable solution, and you're going to get paid close to half less than the neighboring agencies, they come into the agency, they work for you, but they actively test, and we lost all of the members. So a year ago when I came in as fire chief, with the board's approval and direction, we started to say we got to live within our means. We got to live within our means, we got to be sustainable in what we do, because here's the deal, if we don't, we're going to continue to lose more members. We're going to be at 2 stations, not because of funding, because we have nobody to drive the fire engines, no one to be captains, because everyone in our system is brand new. And if we didn't take care of our succession planning gap and those people retired out, we wouldn't have the staff to be able to run the organization. So a year ago, we went to living within our means of being sustainable. And right now we have 3 stations, and it is sustainable for 10 years at 3 stations, but it doesn't service the level that we need to. We can't have short-term solutions, we need permanent solutions. We also explore consolidation with other agencies. And the reality is, there's not an agency out there that wants to take us on because we're a liability. We don't have the revenue to cover the area. We don't have enough resources to cover the area. Consolidation isn't an option. We look at CAL FIRE, we look at agencies that surround us all the way around. The roadway to consolidation is no different than the roadway of standing on our feet all by ourselves. Because once you have the revenue and you have the response and you have the infrastructure and you have the system in place, there's going to be a point to where they say you're no longer a liability, now you become an asset, and then the board and the community need to decide if they want to release local control and consolidate with somebody else. But the pathway is the same. Secondarily, we have also looked at reallocation. We've looked at items called an ESAR concept, Emergency Revenue District. I'm going to talk about reallocation and some other issues that are very important, and we need to understand why it's challenging. But on our website, you can go to our website right now, and there on the right-hand side of the home screen, there's something that says white papers, which are legal analysis of all the options out there that we've explored and tried, and identifies that are not legally possible or where the challenges are. And it also clarifies the ability of the district in regards to our authority. We have a lot of people recommending that we do a state of emergency, we do a moratorium on building. We don't have the authority to do those things. The cities do, the county does. We don't. We service those areas, but we do not have those authorities. In addition, we have a legislative plan right now where I'm spending about 1 to 2 days a month up at the Capitol. I am working at the local and the state level, and even the federal level to some degree, to kick over every rock and mine every option that's available to this district. The message has been sent very loud and very clear that this is a local issue. We have reached out to all the other special districts within our community. We've asked for voluntary reallocation, and there's no agencies that want to be able to do that because there's 3 things that they have to do. If anyone's going to reallocate money, they have to be willing to, they have to be able to have the money to do it, and then they have to agree to not raise rates as long as they're doing it. And there's not any agency out there that is willing to do those things. Furthermore, is that they're at the state level, it's not even elected officials. I can speak for the Contra Costa County Executive Fire Chiefs. There's 14 fire chiefs in the county. We have been very clearly saying that they would not support taking away from any other districts because it's just a zero-sum game. It's transferring the problems, causing other issues. And also at the state level, there's organizations called California Special Districts Association, Fire Departments Associations of California, and they do not support those type of measures at that level, and they would fight against the district because it would negatively impact other organizations. So again, we are still exploring every option, we're still exploring those options, but there's some truths and realities about it. Let's get into the weeds a little bit on our revenue. So again, I explained to you that 96% of our revenue comes from property taxes. Proposition 13 locks everything at 1%, and then you have different revenues of that 1% allocated to different services. And we as a fire district receive 8% of that 1%. Now you can go back home and double check my math on all of this, pull this presentation off, you can click on the link on the bottom, and you can go and you can look at it. But I'm going to give you just an exercise that any of you can do, but here's a tax bill that we all receive. Now I want to be clear, I'm using an example I'm going to be pointing very clearly to Discovery Bay here in a minute. But I'm using Bethel Island as an example because their tax rate is the highest throughout the district. Their tax rate to the fire district is 18.5% going to fire protection. Discovery Bay is closer to 8. Okay? So I'm going to give you this example, but I'll be very clearly on how this impacts Discovery Bay. But we have other areas of our community that have longer response times and pay a higher rate that need speed and weight of the response to be able to mitigate it. So you have a tax rate area. If you go on, it's called the TRA. You plug that number into this link below, you can double check it. Bottom line is that we have 1%. So you get 8% of the 1% when you look on your property taxes. It identifies what the amount is. In this situation, it is $1,661 goes to the 1% of their property taxes for that home. And that breaks it down so you can see it a little bit better. If you go online, you will not see this when you look at this sheet. You have to go online and click in your tax rate area. It will tell you very clearly, and I'll pull yours up, Discovery Bay's here in a minute. It will tell you very clearly where all your funding is going, where that 1% is going to and how much is going specifically to the fire district. In Bethel Island, it's 18%. If you're to reallocate existing funds, or you're going to reallocate growth of funds, the thing that you have to look at is where are you going to take it from and transfer it? What service do you want to cut? To transfer to the fire district. And that's why it's not a supported concept. In Bethel Island, the situation that we just discussed there, in your home is the same thing, is that you have to look at a couple things. That the tax bill value of the home, the situation we have here, is the tax value of the home is $166,000. That's not the market value, that's the tax value of the home. 1% of that is $1,660, which means at 18%, $306 comes from the fire district. Now here's the deal. With Proposition 8 and other ones, again, if the economy drops rapidly, this is important to note. If the economy drops rapidly, the assessor can take your tax rate and they can lower it immediately and readjust it on an annual basis with current market values. Okay? So when we had the crash and it dropped to 40%, when they took and they dropped all home values and they reassessed all homes and dropped it by 40%, the next year's revenue dropped for us by 40%. But as assessed values rapidly went up, those that were in their home and didn't move, every year the tax rates went back up, and a majority of all the people are back to where they were that owned their homes throughout that process. However, a lot of people foreclosed, a lot of people sold, and the people that foreclosed when they sold at a new low rate, they're locked into that rate and it can only increase it by 2% per year. So it's important when you look at your tax rates and your bill, that it's going to tell you what you're only 8% of the tax bill value, not market value. You will have market value if you bought it at that rate today and or that's where your rate is, but it's important. Because everyone always asks, well, all the property values have gone up crazy. Why don't we have more revenue? The reason we don't have more revenue is because a lot of people bought the houses at $300,000, they're valued at $700,000, and only go up 2% per year. So it's just, you need to understand that that's there. So in Bethel Island, 18% is not the whole story. Your percentage is not the whole story. Because in Bethel Island, there's $453 million worth of value. The 1% of the property tax is about $4,530,000, and only $837,000 comes to the fire district. So when you look at that, and it costs about $4.5 million to staff a fire station, and that community brings in $837,000, it's very difficult to staff a fire house. So when you look at Discovery Bay, you're 8.39%. That's where your 1% goes. And you look, a large majority goes to schools. Schools' monies are protected, and you have all your different service areas that are in here. You can go online and you can look at that. But it's important to know that, again, we get 8%. Here's all the different areas within our jurisdiction. And there are areas that we didn't have time to tabulate in there from Marsh Creek, and we didn't put the Byron Bethany money in here. But again, the areas that you have, it averages out to about 8%. And you can see the revenue that comes in from each of the communities, and it costs $4.5 million, between $4 to $5 million to staff a house. That's the issue. That's the problem. Okay? There are about 400 tax rate areas within our jurisdiction. We currently get about 8% of the 1%. Contra Costa County gets 14, San Ramon Valley gets 15, Moraga Rinda gets 21. And here's the brass tacks. I'll break it down for you. is that currently today we are short approximately 3 stations. Those 3 stations are the issue to serve the area that we have today. That is the problem that we need to fix. We need to find a way to fund and get it through a tax, assessment, other means, whatever it may be, for 3 stations. Stations 7 through 9, the district needs to build a mechanism to assure that growth through impact fees on the brick and mortar, the buildings, equipment, and supplies, and or some other assessments take care of when the new homes come in to be able to fund the future stations. But we have to build the gap of what's here already today. And that's the issue. So what are we doing? I'm going to start wrapping it up here. What I'm trying to do is just improve transparency. If you go to our website, again, I'm going to stress the website. Our meetings are on there. We live stream our board meetings. Our finance meetings are open to the public. My personal cell phone, my email address, all of our financial documents, our history. There's a finance section on the page. Our history is there. It's all there for the review. And we're welcome to discuss it. We're trying to live within our means. Again, if we can't increase service levels or get additional revenue, we are sustainable. We're sustainable at 3 stations. Our budget, you can look at it, it's sustainable for 10 years. We're investing into our infrastructure. There have been some concerns or criticism that it looks like as of recent, the past year, that although our revenue is increased, because our revenue has increased, but so have our expenses and so has our call volume, that we've been investing in our infrastructure and it's not impacting the response times and results within our communities. But this is something that everyone needs to know. If anyone runs a business, your infrastructure is critically important. Your personnel are critically important. We have been investing into maintaining our stations and getting them back up to speed because we were not maintaining our stations the way that we should. Our apparatus are at the very end of their service life to be first out engines and need to be transitioned into reserves. We have every 10 years we try to replace our apparatus, put them into reserve capability. Our apparatus are now closer to the 12 to 15 year range. We try to get it at 100,000 miles. They're all well above 100,000 miles, but we're still utilizing them. So we're trying to get apparatus on the front line that we know they can make it the calls that are safe. In addition, our equipment that our personnel wear, they have 10-year lifespans. Last year, they're at their 10-year lifespan. We weren't investing in our capital equipment replacement plans. We are now. We're investing in making sure that we're sustainable into the future, that we're saving money to make sure that we can, our infrastructure is strong. And we're also preparing for growth. What does that mean? We're working with the City of Oakley and the City of Brentwood right now because they have collected fees to be able to build additional stations, or we're looking to build stations. We do not have the revenue to put staff and personnel in them. We have a lot of stations around us that are at the end of their life. They either need to be rebuilt. We have 3 stations that we can staff right now, and we are staffing them. All the future stations need to be built. In addition, we are looking at and exploring all legal, physical, and legislative options that we have. Right now, there are a lot of ideas being floated out there. Please look at our website. Please look at the white pages. Please meet with me and have coffee. But a lot of the ideas that I have are not legally or financially feasible. They're not. If you explore it, they're dead end roads. The white papers help define them. We're also developing a strategic plan. And at the end of the month, next month, that's what I'm welcoming you all to, is we're going to be doing 2 things. We're doing community level surveys, which will go out at the end of this week. And they'll go out until July 9th. And then we're also doing a strategic planning session on July 19th at Nights in School from 6 to 8. Nights in School is in the middle of our jurisdiction, and that's why we put it there. And I'm asking all of you, we'll put it out, we'll put the survey out through all of our social media channels. We have a Facebook page, next door. We'll share it with all of our coordinating partners from the county to the townships to try to get that information out. But participating in that plan, this is what the strategic plan is going to do. The strategic plan is going to clearly define our service levels, the priorities, how long it takes to implement them, and what the costs are, and what we will do when and if additional revenue comes into the district. It is the plan. When additional revenue comes in, what is the district going to do? How can we measure it? And that's what we're doing right now. In addition, running parallel to that is we are doing everything legislatively. We are doing everything locally to define all options on how we will fund. And the strategic plan will be done by December. The elected board will be here in January. We'll take all the information we've collected and all viable options to be able to increase revenue, and then there'll be business decisions made on what we'll pursue. And I'll come back in October and provide an update on not only the strategic planning process, but what we've learned legislatively. So the next steps, as discussed, is I'm doing this. I did this last night in Bethel Island. I'm doing it here tonight. On the 27th and the 28th, I'll be in Oakley and Brentwood. All of them will be live streamed if you go on our Facebook page. If you don't have that technology, we're also videotaping all of them. And they're also going to be available on the webpage too, on the meeting notices, so you can go back and look at them. If you don't have access to the internet, all libraries do. So you can go to the library, you can access it, you can watch it, and I'm available to ask any questions you may have. The community survey is very important. Please participate in that. And then the strategic planning session and nights in school, it's on the flyer. We have flyers in the back. They're available for all of you that look just like this. The 2 red strikeouts are one Bethel Island in the meeting tonight, and then we'll be moving into next month. Additional information, as I said, our website is very key. It's kind of the portal. That's what we point everyone back to. It's a platform for us sharing all of our information. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Nextdoor. If you subscribe to all of our pages, we'll get information out to you. And we also provide updates on a monthly basis at your town hall meetings. We have our board meetings that are live streamed every month. Please go and I'll tell you where it is. We also have finance meetings open to the public on Mondays. There's a subject to change depending upon if there's any holidays of any sort. And to conclude, sorry folks. So to conclude, what I would like to do is you have those cards. I'm available to you. It is right now, it is 5 till 7. We stated that we'd be here till 8. And I'm willing to stay afterwards to talk to anyone individually. I didn't go into any specific incidents to your area because I'm sending the same message and communicating to all communities. But I'm open to address any questions that you may have about our funding, about what we've done, where we're going, specific incidents, and I'll do the best I can to answer any questions. So if you have them, you can pass them on down. Regina's going to grab them, and then I'll do the best I can to address your questions. All right, you guys can give me a moment here. Wow, that's good handwriting. It's typed out. I love that. We got questions coming in from Facebook. That's great. Okay, so from Facebook, and what I'll do is I'll read these. It says, citizens seem to be penalized for a lack of coverage by a close enough fire department. I'm paying $200 more for fire insurance than my previous owner, and the insurance company said it was because of lack of response times, and that's a fact. That's from someone on Facebook. The reality is, yes, depending upon where you live and where you're at, we do know that there's some areas of Bethel Island, Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory that they are having problems getting insured in their properties. It may not impact some people due to the location of station at all, but that is a fact that when it comes down to coverage, it can impact your insurance rates, and we are seeing that. And there's nothing really the district can do about that. That's just a cause and effect. The district keeps stating we have 3 stations with a large geographical area to cover. Factually, there is 4 stations, including the Marsh Creek Station operated by CAL FIRE. That is in the district. Pays to keep operating all year. Why does the district keep using the false statement 3 stations? Okay. Well, we do contract with CAL FIRE. during the winter months. Right now, if both engines are out during fire season, they're not a resource for us. We had scheduled live burning training for the last 2 weeks, which all got canceled because the state resources were not available to come into the area. During the winter months, whenever it's not fire season, we do contract with CAL FIRE to be able, and again, we've looked at CAL FIRE for consolidation, we've looked to be able to do that. CAL FIRE during those months, during the winter months, they are a resource, and we can utilize it for move and cover and whatever we need to do. They are very good neighbors, they're very good cooperators. But the predominant part of our system year-round is 3 stations, and even at the 9 stations, so to be very clear, is that I keep saying that we need 9 stations. It also states in the studies that takes into consideration that CAL FIRE will be the 10th. So that is true. We do lean upon CAL FIRE. We've looked at consolidation and taking this over, contracting different services from CAL FIRE, and everything outside of investigation services. The rates that we have and the services we provide are very competitive. It's hard to get for what we do it for. So again, I'm not insinuating East Contra Costa Fire has 3 stations, and we do contract winter months for CAL FIRE, and they are a good partner for us. So sorry if that was misrepresented. Why does not using a squad model that would allow more stations and lowering response times not work, as 85% of the calls are medicals? Multiple units are always going to be needed for fire calls. So through the strategic planning process that we're doing right now, squad concepts are something that we're looking at. That is a concept that we've been looking at within the city of Brentwood, and that's something we're going to be looking at within our system. The squad concept does cost around $3 million to be able to fund. Where that resource is located is still to be determined if we were to go that route. But here's the deal. We're trying to get more fire resources on the street for fire and rescue. So that isn't something that we're not looking at. It's something we are looking at. And it's something that is going to be part of the model. But the question is, we don't need more squads, we need more engines. And the question is, can squads be a stepping stone to go to engines? We don't know. For those of you that don't know what squads are, it's more of a utility vehicle with 2 firefighters on it without firefighting capabilities. They may have some light rescue situations, whatever it may be. In addition, we're not paramedics. We didn't talk about that here. Every agency in Contra Costa County has paramedics on their fire engines. We have EMTs outside of Richmond. Richmond also has EMTs. So when people will say you should have a squad and put paramedics onto it, going from basic life support to advanced life support, that is also we're looking at that in the strategic initiatives to identifying is putting paramedics on every engine, and or if we entertain doing squads. Is that something we want to look at? But that's a service level increase. It's a service level increase. So we're utilizing and living within our means right now until we figure out our strategic planning process and what the steps are. We're not going to change our service model until we can have a plan to implement that is sustainable. And that's what we're doing between now and December. We'll make those decisions in January. You get 8% of the 1% of the property tax. What is the standard outside of California? What can we do to increase the percent more than 8%? So if you were to go onto our website and you were to look, so that's reallocation. That question is a creative way of asking how do we reallocate property taxes? That's all that is. And the way that you do it is that you go to the state. Well, first, they're going to want everyone locally to voluntarily be willing to do it. And if everyone locally is being able to do it, you can take that to the state. And the state can take it to the legislature. And they have to pass by 2/3 majority throughout the state. That's how we do it. And we've been told that the fact that we do not have at the local level, there's no one voluntarily willing to do it. As we went back and looked at your TRA or tax rate areas, where are you going to cut services, where are you going to challenge it to, where are they not going to increase their rates? Reallocation, if at all possible, And I'm being told it's not, because those of you that look into this issue and look at Proposition 13, there's a residential side and a commercial side, and they lean upon each other. And when you change it or modify it, it impacts the economy throughout California. The first part of the question, I can't speak to other states. I can't speak to that. I can look into that and respond back if someone wants to give me who that is. But I'm working within the laws and legalities and the situation that we have. I've explored reallocation. If we hang our hat on that, service levels will be the way they are for a very long time. So unfortunately, I don't have the ability, the authority locally to have local agencies change our revenue. And there's not going to be any state support. And if we were to get local, that'd be great. But once they take it to the state, it's not going to be elected officials. It's going to be the other groups. We're California, we are a special district. California Special Districts Association will stand up directly against that. So will Fire Departments Association of California, because it will impact their other districts negatively. It's a zero-sum game. You're just moving the chips around. What is the ISO rating for Discovery Bay? What is the likelihood that it will change to the worst rating in the next year? So Discovery Bay Byron, it's a 4.9. So it's actually, if you look at it, it'd be 4.9x if you look at it and you talk to ISO. So the best rating you can have is a 1. That's a top class fire department, and a 10 is going to be no fire protection at all. There are areas of Discovery Bay, the Discovery Bay is a 4, but when you get out to Byron, you can quickly go to a 9. Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory, the same way. That goes back to the insurance rates we referenced previously. It's time and distance from a fire station and also from a fire hydrant. That's really what they look at, a staff fire station from a fire hydrant, and it's your distance in between. You call and they're going to ask you that. You moved into a new home, where's your closest fire department? Where's the nearest fire hydrant? It'll give you your rating. They look at our district. Last time that we were rated, we were 3, we went to a 4. I don't anticipate that number changing. The 4.9 is what I believe, and an X is because, again, we have multiple jurisdictions in our area. So I believe that we're going to be saying that a 4.9, and I don't anticipate, although ISO can come out at any point, we would communicate that with the community if and when they came out. In the 11 months since the 4th station closed, and the 4th station was in Knightson back in last July, the district has been able to respond to calls for 69 hours and 59 minutes. During the time of these 33 emergency calls have come in and were handled by other agencies in Contra Costa County, East Contra Costa Fire Protection District. Are these response times included in the 90th percentile response time numbers the district posts? If not, why? So if we don't respond to those calls, they're not our agency's calls. They're Contra Costa County Fire calls, they're Tracy Fire calls. Those calls were not assigned to our agency. So what the question is saying that we had 69 calls. When we shut down the station, we had 69 calls, for 69 hours and 59 minutes in total. So for example, we have a residential structure fire. All of our units are committed for 4 hours, mitigating that incident. During that 4 hours, when other calls come in, we have to rely upon automatic, which means that we have agreements with people to come automatically, and Contra Costa County Fire has been a good neighbor. But that is not something that it's not sustainable either for them to continue to send us over resources the way that they have. So they do respond, or if they can't respond, Tracy, Alameda, whomever, Mountain House will come. And so the response times obviously are really delayed. The speed and the weight of the call, if you get a second structure fire, it impacts us. We had a vegetation fire just the other day. We had 3 units. All of our units were on it. And then a residential fire came in Bethel Island. The last unit to arrive at scene was from Pleasant Hill. So the 5th engine was from Pleasant Hill. Now, luckily enough, it was an exterior fire, didn't extend into the attic, but obviously that impacts our calls. So the reality is that they are not included in our response times because they aren't our incidents. They are our incidents in our jurisdiction, but we didn't respond to them, and that's why. Increasing tax fees is not popular. I agree. I live in the system too. I live here in California. With this, off the table of options, more revenue, What do you think is the most plausible and likely source? Please touch on tax reallocation. Please touch on tax reallocation. Is our California rep here to answer the question? All right, I'm going to do that again, guys. I'm sorry, I butchered that. I'm just trying to understand it. So, increasing property tax and fees is not popular, I agree. With this off the table of options, more revenue, what do you think is the best plausible and likely source? I assume of funding. Please touch on tax reallocation. Is our California rep here to answer the question? There is not another rep here, but again, I believe that I've hit on that very clearly of why it doesn't work. Look, folks, I understand, and this is the deal. The service levels of the HC are what they are. We do need more revenue, and I'm just saying that I've mined out all of the options at the local and state level, and I will continue to. But I'm getting a very clear no for a lot of reasons from not only elected officials but other organizations that reallocation is a zero-sum game and it will not be supported. Proposition 13 locked everything at 1%. So if service level increases were going to occur, it had to go to the people and they had to agree it was a needed service. If the hardest part for me is that the community, rightfully so. So when I say it's hard for me, it's relevant. But the community does get to choose level of protection that they want. My job is to run as efficiently as I can of a system I can today with the revenue that we have and put a very measurable, thought through, and thorough plan on the table to define if service level increases were or revenues that come into the district, how we were going to do it. And that's where the strategic plan comes in. I'm trying to go above and work at the state, federal, local level to mine out and kick over every rock I possibly can, and I'll continue to do that as we move forward.
Right.
Yes, sir.
That was my question.
Yeah, did I butcher it? Did I even get it right?
No, that was pretty close. But if I may detail it just
Please.
further, have you engaged at all with our local rep for? We know that it's not popular to reallocate.
Sure.
The special districts. Nobody's going to do that, and it sounds like that they've gotten all together over some time, and they said that they're unwilling to do that. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So their pots of money also increase every single year by a certain percent, naturally from the revenues. There was one idea that was placed on the table where you do not increase. You do not give them the normal 3%, 5%, 6% yearly increase.
Yes.
And you sidetrack that to our fire district.
Correct.
And at one point, our rep was on board with some sort of legislation that he was going to introduce in Sacramento in that direction. Now, there was a hiccup because there was some money found.
That's right.
At the county that
That's correct.
Was lost. So he pulled his support for that temporarily because he wanted to make sure the votes were right. Can you tell us where he is now on that issue?
So you're referencing 8898, 8899. That is a Assemblyman Fraser bill that he had on the table a year ago. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Is that what you're referencing?
I don't know the number, but
The bill is gone. It doesn't exist. It was taking $10.5 million from East Bay Regional Parks and reallocating it over to us. There was, again, at a local level, the concept sounds great, but there were a lot of agencies, not only fire, there were other fire agencies that didn't support. There were not only a lot of groups that did not support. We had a lot of challenges. The bill died. That bill doesn't exist anymore, and that's gone. The concept of, again, any agency, whoever it may be, in regards to reallocating from future growth, the issue that I stated before, what impacts the agencies, is that again, that even if it's a portion of or all of growth, they have to do those three things. They have to have it available, they have to be willing to do it, and they have to agree that they won't increase service rates as long as they're providing the revenue to the district. And we've looked at reallocating the percentage, so 1 or 2% just entirely, which obviously is reallocating for 13 now. And we've also looked locally at exploring doing a portion thereof. And there's just not anyone locally that is volunteering willing to do that. And for that reason, the state's not looking at it. With that being said, if you go into our board packets every single month, there's a legislative update. We are looking at every single bill that is out there that has any opportunity to be able to do anything. Furthermore, is that again, if you're going to be looking at a measure like that, be done at the state level, it would be done across the state. And respectfully, people don't, at the state level, I've talked to not only the questions that I talk to them, I talk regularly, and I should say our board members do, because that's what our board members do. They talk to Fraser, Glazer, McNerney. I talk to other legislators throughout the state to identify where we are as isolated, and again, it's very constant. The messaging is very constant to the degree that you're dealing with a local area issue. The local people have to address it. And so at the state level, all I'm saying is reallocation of Proposition 13, it's dead on arrival. And or future growth is dead on arrival. Now with that being said, is I'm going to continue to explore and continue to have discussions when ideas pop up. We'll definitely continue looking at it. But no one locally is willing to reallocate, as I showed you, growth for the reasons I discussed. And no one's willing to reallocate Proposition.
Okay, to make sure I got this right then, to summarize. The special districts that receive our property tax money now, none of them are willing to decrease their growth or their allocation.
Correct.
So it's never going to be solved there. And our local politicians can't solve it at the state level, the next level up. So it's not going to happen coming from property taxes in the current state. You're saying that our congressman in Sacramento will not introduce another method or introduce another bill to reallocate our property taxes?
What I'll say is this: it's not for me to speak for anybody else, and I'll speak for what I can speak to. What I've stated is that very clearly what I do know is that until there's local support to be able to do that for our district, if we can't do it locally, I mean, again, it's a local issue. If we can't get it to get agreement at a local level, there's not going to be anywhere to take it to a state level.
So what district are you talking about there? Are you talking about the fire district?
I'm talking about, so another thing, if I were to go back and look at the slide, let me just get there. So right off the bat, school districts are off the table.
Yeah.
That's 60%. So now you're at the flood control, library, town of Discovery Bay.
Where's East Bay Parks on there?
County general.
So yeah, you have there's a general too. So you have, this is the drill down. That would have been right here.
East Bay Parks is on the left side of
Right here.
the tax bill. They're not part of the 1%.
Okay, so
They have another assessment. It's not part of your 1%. It says your 1%, and then you have other assessments.
okay,
So they're part of another assessment.
we're just talking about the districts then on that one slide.
That's right.
My bad, I thought.
It's fair. No, look, I mean, let me take a step back, folks. I mean, here's the thing is, over the past year, I've been trying to figure it out. I mean, and that's the thing is, I'm just trying to share with everybody what I know and where we are, because it's critical to understand when you drill down and get into it, why it's difficult and why I've been hitting dead ends. I want you to understand, I'll explore any option anyone gives us. That's why we have legal papers showing it that you can rest back to. But I'm also going back and double checking our math. So it's, but I don't, it's a good conversation. I love it.
Thank you.
So there's a question here. What about an advisory vote for reallocation? The agencies the voters went to. So an advisory election is like putting on the ballot an election of which you're asking a question like we did. We went by and we said, hey, do you mind if we reduce from 9 to 5? So you put the idea out there and see how people are favorable without just the concept of the idea. Reallocation in concept will pass dramatically. If you don't take into consideration the legalities and the roadblocks and if you look into why it doesn't work. One of the biggest challenges I have as the fire chief is going around because, listen, I'll tell you this. The community has subscribed to the concept that this is the answer. It has been told to them, it's doable, it's told to them, it's going to work, it's told to them this is the answer to it. And what concerns me is, when that day never comes, then what? Because I've done the legwork, I've gone out there, I've talked to the people, and I've tried to say, how do we push this forward, how does it work? And legally, it's not doable on the state level, it's not just our elected officials, like I said, it's all these other groups. It's California professional firefighters, it's these other districts that protect other special districts. So doing an advisory election, here's the thing is, elections are very expensive. So if it's advisory or if it's real, it's very expensive. And asking a question that puts false hope into the members as if that is going to be the answer to it is something the district doesn't want to participate in.
But Chief?
Yes, sir.
My question.
Please.
The premise of it is, you're saying that these other agencies don't want to do it. But if you put this in strong, I believe it would be overwhelmingly approved or in favor of it, telling the elected officials, this is what you will want. We want safety.
Okay, sure.
And,
so,
you know, and if they don't want to do that, then you go after the agencies or the people who are elected. Because they're not representing the will of the people.
so then this is what needs to be done. And actually, as community members, you can, I mean, the agency doesn't have to go out and do this. If you want to define and put on there, do an advisory election, you need to be very specific to what services you want to cut.
Right.
So you have to do, and the fire district currently isn't going to subscribe in putting an advisory vote to say, we want you to take 3% from the city of Discovery Bay and allocate it to the fire service.
Now, and I think the allocation people, and I think you've seen it, they haven't talked about cutting. They talk about increases. So in other words, they may not take away 2% of their 8% increase for the next year. It's not cutting into their initial.
And again,
so the premise of cutting is not really accurate.
no, but you are taking, I mean, our projections, you look at our budget for 10 years, because expenses go up every year. Service level increases in demand go up every year. The growth in budget practices, you expect growth. So taking a portion of your revenues in the future could potentially impact the service levels within that area.
They've been going up dramatically the last few years.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that again, as a fire district, I'm just trying to give you the position. I think it's fair to agree to disagree. I've explored everything legally and feasibly with our legal counsel. Look, I'm not saying that as of today or in the near future, there has to be additional revenue in the district. I'm not saying how that's going to be achieved today. What I'm saying that if we spend our time, energy, and effort on this, we have. And we're getting it very clear locally and at the state level that if you're going to be messing with funding that's going to other districts, even if you did an advisory election and the people wanted it at the state level and even the local level, there's going to be tremendous opposition to it. Tremendous opposition to it. Are there studies maybe within the district that show numerically the increased loss of life and or the property due to longer response times? How is this being used to argue for increased funding? That's a good question. No, there's not, we don't have a study that is studying and looking at the specific life that is lost. We do know, every year we know how much property loss that we have because we do document it. We're starting to go back and look at actually the reverse and look at how much property we're saving in the area. Life lost due to time and incident, that's very hard to measure. it's very hard to measure because again, did they pass away on arrival? Is that due to response times? Is that due to the underlying cause, whatever it may be? But I think the short answer is no, there isn't. Whoever posed that question, I'd be more than willing to sit down and get better understanding of what we're trying to measure. But what has been measured, in what is very clear, is that time and distance and medicals and fires have detrimental effects. That's not debatable. To what degree? That's difficult to describe. Previous standards regarding 4 minutes response in the district from previous standards requiring 4-minute response in the district from the receipt of the call. What is the standard now? Again, in the urban areas in Oakley and Brentwood, the travel time is different than the response time. So travel time is that we're rolling. So the engine's moving at scene. Our response times in the 4-minute travel time in Brentwood and Oakley, we want to be able to get there. The response times are closer to 7 minutes and 30 seconds. We are closer to the 9-minute window right now for our total response time. Our travel times are substantially longer than the 4 minutes. Those are all guidelines, right? Those are guidelines of what we want, and the reason the 4 minutes is recommended for travel time, it goes to the fire growth. We're talking about fires, medical aid, being able to breathe. 4 minutes, permanent damage can start to set in. So again, the 4 minutes is what we strive for within urban, and then it goes up. If I missed that, please do a follow-up question. What help has our assembly member been? All of them have been actually a tremendous amount of help. You know, the thing about it is the state, and people chuckle, but here's the thing is, you know, if you spend time and you go up to the state yourself and look at how the state works and how the state moves and what the issues are, people at the state don't know who East Contra Costa Fire is. They're starting to, because I'm up there. And I'm telling them our story. And I'm communicating with California professional firefighters and our assembly members and other ones and the speaker. And talking to all different people trying to share a story and where we're at. They put their neck out there. AB 898 and 899. The assembly member put himself way out there, put those out there. They were not well received. The thing is, I meet with them regularly. Our board members meet with them regularly. They are willing to take anything once we get local support to be able to do something, and they get something that is viable. And these options aren't viable. So what they are doing is they're taking the time to meet with our board members and to meet with me on a regular basis to continue to explore options at the local and state level. So the thing is this, because they haven't fixed it in the ways that have been recommended because they've deemed to be non-feasible throughout the state for a local issue, it doesn't mean that they aren't there and trying to support it and assist. This is a community, local, state issue, and we're continuing to work with them. We haven't figured it out yet. So the fact that they're giving a lot of time, energy, and effort, and they're trying to support us with resources and communicating our message and working with us, they're a partner in this problem. And for that, I really do appreciate it. Why is the district at an 8% level versus at the others? If based on a volunteer model that doesn't work, how can Prop 13 be changed? What are the bigger agencies, cities, and Brentwood doing to pay for their population served? What are bigger agencies? So Brentwood and Oakley, you can see the amount of revenue, like everywhere else, where they bring in property taxes. Brentwood brings in close to $6+ million a year into our budget. They bring in the most, but the population is also the biggest. Brentwood has also stated that they have revenue that they want to allocate to the fire district when we get our plan in place. The amount that they have in their strategic planning process has been very public is $1 million or so a year. to be able to work towards increasing services. They have in their strategic planning process exploring wanting to do a squad concept, as has been discussed here, and they have money to put towards that concept. And I've told them that I'm asking them to participate in our strategic planning process and put those monies in staging to be able to fund something that we know is sustainable. I don't want to build something that's temporary, it's a bridge to nowhere. We need to make sure that all of our internal processes are good, our finances are good. We know the step that we're going to take is going to be sustainable, and we need to have a plan that supports it. And so we have tabled our conversations until January, but they've come alongside of us and said we want to help. They also have a Fire First initiative, which means they're looking through development to either have community facility districts or having growth from new development going in to also serve this problem that we have. I meet with both city managers every 2 weeks. And we sit down and talk. So I present at in Oakley, I meet with Brentwood has an ad hoc. The City Council of Oakley, I meet with them every quarter. But they are actively engaged in the strategic planning process, and when we get to a plan, then we're going to readdress funding. But the City of Oakley and the City of Brentwood is there saying we want to give the opportunity to be able to fund service level increases. The City of Oakley, we're looking at and working with them to identify there's growth, there's opportunity for other community facility districts, which are CFDs. We hear CFDs or community facility districts. The problem with CFDs and community facility districts is that it's not going to fix the problem. We can do a district-wide community facility district, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not millions. It doesn't fix the system. But it is the mechanism possibly through the impact fees for brick and mortar and capital replacement for future stations. There's impact fees on development. That's what, we'll get through the developers and development. But then the residents may have CFDs in the future to take care of future growth, which is operational for the station. So when I was on the slide, I talked about exploring other options for growth. There's opportunities there. The City of Oakley is working with us to see if we want to do a district-wide, but here's the deal. We currently have community facility districts in our jurisdiction. And those folks that have community facility districts in other areas in our community that don't, they say, if you do anything, we feel like we're being taxed twice already. So how do you handle that? So if you do a community facility district, the CFDs in different areas, you pretty much made the ask that those members will do. So if they buy a home and they're within a CFD, you really can't ask them. And it takes more than CFDs to fix our problems. So what are the bigger agencies doing? They're meeting with me every 2 weeks. They're engaging in the strategic planning process. They're defining what they believe to be high service levels. Is it paramedics or another station? Which one will come first? Paramedics on our existing engines, adding another station, squads, prevention bureau, whatever it may be. So they're actively engaged in this process. This says, can we pursue another ballot measure? Are some ambulances private? When I hear can we, what I'm hearing is we as the district, and the answer is yes, absolutely. But we have had a lot of criticism that I think to some degree have a lot of merit. We went through the two measures, the cities went through the taxes, and there was a trend of responses that came out after the very first time we tried to go to the people. We got challenged for lacking transparency. We got challenged for having, what is your plan? I mean, the transparency part is, what are your finances? Are you being as financially stable as you can? Is what you're asking us right? And we didn't clearly be able to answer that question. Number two was, when and if you get revenue, how is it going to be used? That's the plan. And the third one was, you need to live within your means. And there are some others. That trend continued through all three, and we really didn't remedy any of those. So, very clearly, and I get criticized most right now for lack of urgency. Why aren't you doing anything? Why aren't you increasing service levels? And to be completely transparent with you is because there's a lot of things we need to get in order. I wouldn't, within my own home, on a personal level, ever go ask any one of you to help me or support me until I know I've exhausted all my means. And we've had to work through and change a lot of our internal processes financial, administrative, and others. We had to hire people. We had to refine our processes, work through our budget, and our budget's come a long way. We had to build a capital equipment replacement plan. We were 3 to 4 years behind on financial audits. In August, we'll be caught up with all of them. It means we'll be in our current year, all of our audits will be completed. There's a thing called other post-employee benefit study that's supposed to be done by agencies every 2 years. We've never done one. We got it done 2 months ago. And that identifies all your financial responsibilities. So until I get, or we as a district get our affairs in order to identify all of our audits are up to date, we have a financially sound budget, we're living within our means, we can be measured by our behavior on a plan that we're going to implement when we get revenue, there's no ask. There's just no ask. And so the answer is yes. But I also want to make sure we explore all the options to identify not only how much, but look, it's not just the easy answer, just go to the people. We have to validate and explore. We've checked everything else out. So yes, we can. But the question is, are affairs in order? And they will be, and we're there. And by December, we're going to have a solid plan. And in January, with the elected board, we're going to start making some decisions. The ambulance company is American Medical Response. They are managed by Contra Costa County Fire in a cooperation called the Alliance. We work hand in hand with them. We're part of the system. They've worked with us tremendously. Because again, like I explained to you, that we send them in our area. They've increased resources into our area. They've increased ambulances into our area. They have more transport ambulances in this area. Because of the lack of fire response, they go to ambulance-only responses where most agencies will send an engine, and they expect the engine to get there first. So it's private, it's not us. They've gone a long way. The triage calls run calls for us, and it is private. What is the status of the political advocacy in Sacramento to obtain fair and equitable funding? I've hit the fair and equitable funding component to it. And that goes back to reallocation of Prop 13. But what is, we contracted with a firm called Townsend Public Affairs to be an extension of our staff, to be an ambassador for us at the state level. They are there every day walking the halls of Sacramento. They are working with, they're setting up meetings for me on a regular basis. They go through and let me understand processes, because there's a whole other game up there that's not my wheelhouse, but I'm learning about and becoming a student of it. They also, which is very good to note, is that we historically, outside of, we had one grant prior to me coming in, but we're involved in multiple grant processes right now for one-time expenditures. We are replacing all of our extrication equipment on our fire apparatus that we successfully got through a grant. Our members are wearing new self-contained breathing apparatus that are end of our life that saved us about $240,000 in a grant. Right now we've applied and we're hoping to wait to hear back about a hazard and mitigation study through FEMA, that they can come do a community risk assessment. That'll be the cornerstone of all future grants we have for us. That saves us about $30,000. We're waiting to hear back on that one. And just last week, there's a PG&E grant where we're trying to take all of our electrical fans, lights, and other sources that we have for portable devices, and we're trying to go from gas to electric. And so they are also helping us write all of our grants, monitoring the grant process, pushing those things through. So it's not just legislative activities that they're doing, they're also writing grants for us. If you go on our website and look at our monthly reports, you will find that there's legislative updates every single month of all the bills that we're monitoring and looking at for infrastructure, resources, anything that assists and or compromises the mission of the organization. We are either speaking in support of, or we are speaking against everything from redevelopment to the way agencies having websites to, there's all kinds of stuff that we speak to or speak against. So what they have done is, again, they're extension of staff to make sure that we are relevant, our stories being told, or at the state level we're monitoring, and when we need to speak to things, they help me be able to communicate that message at the state and local level, and those updates are available for you. You can find them on all of our board documents. Can volunteer residents be trained with AEDs and first aid to foster medical response? So volunteers, if you go on to the, I'm going to address this in two parts. All of us should be trained in CPR. All of us should know how to operate an AED. On our webpage right now, on the very front page, it talks about pulse point. Pulse Point is a system that you can subscribe to as an app. It's free. It identifies and will let you know where AEDs are around you, automatic external defibrillators. It will also, if you're trained and you allow it to do so, it will let you know if someone has gone into cardiac arrest or where the nearest AED is. You can do that right now if you're trained. And that's that mechanism to be able to do within those means. We are also going to be doing a formal launch of that program. I have a public information officer by the name of Battalion Chief Ross McCumber, and we're working with Pulse Point to do a formal launch. Our board members right now and our staff members are working every day to get more AEDs into the system. And we've been doing some community level training CPR, and we look to increase that into the future. With that being said about volunteers, the district was primarily volunteers. We discussed that. I ran the volunteer programs, and I want to be also clear as I started in those programs. The members that ran the volunteer organizations, we stand on their shoulders today. That is our history as a volunteer organization. From 2006 to 2010, we worked like crazy to maintain the volunteer levels paid on. There's a lot of names. There's paid on calls, there's reserves, there's a whole bit. But here's the facts. And if you go onto the district's website and you look on press releases, that's right next to the white papers that I've been discussing. When you look at the press releases, I've talked about our infrastructure and investing into our infrastructure, and I've talked about the utilization reserves in our stands. Volunteerism across the nation is dwindling rapidly. 10 years ago, there were 300,000 volunteer firefighters in the United States, and today we're at 50,000. Okay, California, when you look at California, and you look at why people volunteer or reserves or paid-on-call firefighters, I'll be very clear with you, it's because they want a job. And that's what we experienced, is you have to have the administrative staff, the training hours, they need to be trained at 240 hours a year. So before, there used to be two standards. There was the volunteer standard for training, and there was the career firefighter standard for training. Today, if you want to be a firefighter, you train as a firefighter, because we were losing lives. So you need to have 240 hours of training to be a volunteer firefighter. You need to have the staff and the personnel to be able to train those folks. You need to spend about $20,000 to get them the equipment and run them through an academy. And what we found was we were hiring people, working with people, training people, and they were with us just long enough until they get a job. So we found we were competing with the community college district, if you think about it. Because they bring people in to get their firefighter one. So what we're doing right now is that we're trying to work with the community college district. We don't have the staff, we need another member to be able to help us manage this program. We had a training division. But we want to work with the community college districts because they will recruit the people. They will outfit them. They will give them the uniform. They will train them. And then they will say, go to East Contra Costa Fire, because today they're going to Rio Vista, they're going to Cordelia, they're going to River Delta, they're going to other areas, and say, go to them and get your internship. And once you get your internship completed, and you get a job, you can go back to their pool that they're managing. But right now, we've been looking at it, it's a labor management initiative, we want to be able to do it, but it's another management mechanism, and we're shoring up a lot of things in our operational process, and our administrative process, until we can get things efficient. We're not going to be adding a new program. So volunteering, again, the whole concept of volunteers, I want to make clear too, is volunteering isn't free. Because you still have to pay for their equipment, you still got to carry them on your insurance, you got to take care of their workers' comp, and you own them. And we continue losing. Again, there's a lot more in depth and a lot more articulate on the website. If you look at the white paper, I'd be more than happy to talk about it. Please explain how property tax reallocation would affect other fire districts throughout the state, i.e. LA County, Confire. They will not back reallocation for a 3-station department. It threatens their funding. So, yes, all special districts. It's not just fire districts. And again, what's hard is when folks ask me to look at other industries as law enforcement, or they want me to look at other states, or they want me to look at areas that are in Southern California. I can't speak to those things. I know our county, I know our adjacent counties, I know what the state, what it is that we're doing. I've spoken at executive fire chiefs. There's 14 fire chiefs in Contra Costa County. I'm one of them. And again, that if we as the fire district were to push this initiative, I'd be on an island. And it's not just them. So I've already hit that. I'm not going to continue hitting that. So it says our supervisors here, what is the county willing to do to help? The county has assisted with memorandum. They have been an active participant in the memorandums of understanding that we've had in the past. They've given us one-time funding. They gave us hundreds of thousands of dollars contributed to the MOU to open the stations time and time again. When the district, when I came in a year ago, we were looking at extending the MOU for another 1 or 2 years, and I had to come in with the board support, obviously, and say, doing this for another 2 years, again, if we don't handle our retention issues, we're going to be down to 2 stations because we don't have succession planning. It's a problem. We were having a real hard time staffing the 4 stations at the time. The county actually went through and they had approved actually working towards supporting the district and continuing that MOU. I will tell you that speaking for my experience with Supervisor Burgess is, again, as I said, with Brian Montgomery, Gus Vina, your own Mike Davies, and Supervisor Burgess, is that we are all working collectively trying to figure this out. So let me reverse this. All of them want to know what the district's path forward is going to be, and that is our plan. It needs to be a district-led initiative, and I am working on getting our housekeeping in order, running our operation as efficiently as we can, and developing a plan, and then we'll be going back to everybody and saying, this is what the plan looks like, this is what we need, how can we all contribute to it? So I want to be clear about something is, the counties, the cities, they're looking to the district and they're asking the very fair question is, how do you need our support? What is it?
I guess the question is that, and I understood what you said with the
Okay.
cities.
Yes.
And we heard that the cities are talking about making a commitment. I'd like to hear if the county is going to make a commitment. You have to have your plan, but at least I think I've heard a good sounding from the cities that they will. I want to know if the county will. It's ready to set up once you got your plan.
And I'll say myself, and I'll let the supervisor, if she would like to address, but again, I haven't got to that degree of conversation, and because again, I'm focusing on developing our plan.
Thank you for asking. The thing that we're trying to do is, this is my second year in office as a county supervisor. So what I wanted to do was to help folks understand what the district was, because early on I recognized that people didn't even understand the difference between the fire protection district, the counties, and the cities. So I supported helping people understand. That was the first part. The second part was helping to create more leadership and less of a power play on who was going to have more and all of this. This is a whole district, and we all have to get in together. I'm really proud of the board members because they're not just representing whoever appointed them, they're representing the whole region. So my goal as a county supervisor is to support the district, and what they're doing is they're going to the people and they're getting them involved in figuring out what the next steps are. And that's what I support, because I don't have the answer. There's things that I supported before, but not everybody did. So now we're all coming together and we're speaking in these meetings, and the strategic plan will be the big one. And that way everybody's going to be heard. And we'll decide together. And that's what I will support. On a personal level, I have a child that was 3 years old. And he went into anaphylactic shock. And I lived in Hayward at the time. And I called 911 on autopilot. I didn't even realize I called. And they were there within 4 minutes. My child's lips were swelling. The firefighters were there. The ambulance arrived afterwards. We were in an ambulance within probably 5 to 10 minutes. You know how time kind of doesn't make sense when you're going through that. And we were on the freeway, lights going, and they were getting a tracheotomy tray out for my child. And so I have constituents that are going to be waiting longer than that if they're in that situation, and that's unacceptable. So whatever I can do to help my community not deal with that kind of situation, whether it's their health or their property or their lives, I'm going to do whatever I can do to support the fire district. And I'm listening to you, and that's why I'm at all of these meetings, because I'm hearing what you are asking, I'm hearing what you support, I'm hearing the ideas. And then we're all going to come together, and we're going to have to be on one common path. It can't be 10 people doing different things all at one time. We all have to come together and come up with a united solution. And so that's what I'm doing.
And just the thing is, we all know it's a revenue problem. So if taxes aren't going to be there, because they're voted down 3 times, reallocation, which everybody would like to see, we can't get the political will to have it done, then there's money needed. Whatever plan, the strategic plan comes up, there's revenue that's needed. I think everybody in this room will agree with that. So that's what I'm saying, is the county, as your supervisor, once this all comes out, are they going to, because I don't know where else the money can come from. We don't have trees.
Especially ones that don't grow money, correct?
Yeah.
So to bring us back to the point, and we're closing on our time. Before I start work to conclude, so I want to respect all your time. Is there any more comment cards out there, question cards out there? Yes, sir.
Chief, I'm from your industry. I've lived here since '93, and I would like to know, you guys as our pros, served here for all these years, in the systems, so regionally, countywide, in your view, what would you recommend the perfect system for us, based on the threat population? We know you have a call line, but what would you tell me as a whole industry person? When you work here, I don't know.
So you're saying, would I recommend that?
What would you tell us we need for 110, 250 to address the rest, just like the fire of the night here? And when I look at my brother firefighters over there, and I know you guys know, but I want to hear, because I think you guys know better than this. In a perfect world, would it be the 90 stations?
Yeah, no, that's a very fair question. And I think earlier in the presentation I hit that the district needs somewhere between 5 to 7 stations. As we work with this strategic plan, I'm going to quantify exactly what the 5 to 7 is that we need today. That is something as a community, is we need to fill that gap, and the district needs to work to make sure that through growth we take care of 7, 8, and 9, and we build the mechanisms that do not exist today, but it is imperative that we do to take care of future growth. So today what we need, and again, is to be able to hit response times that is speeding the way to mitigate the incidents we have within the jurisdiction we have, is that we need another 3 stations. And so what I'm doing right now, again, is I'm going through and I'm making sure, and I'll conclude with this if there's no other questions, is, again, I know, is there another question?
Yeah, there is. Surrounding fire districts, is it true that they get paid more, or do they have a higher revenue than your district?
Both.
Okay. Have you taken a look at their allocation from their property taxes?
Yes.
How does ours compare to theirs? The differences, what are the major differences? Of how it's allocated?
So,
Why are we getting paid?
okay, so in the 70s when Proposition 13 came in, they went into each of the areas. And you have to think about what these communities that we live in now look like in the 70s. And they went out and looked at the services provided within those areas, and they said, what is the funding that you need to be able to provide the services that you locked in? And so each of those areas, depending upon the service they provided at the time, we were purely volunteer, and we were locked in at the different rates because, again, our population was thousands. We had thousands, and we were purely volunteer. And the growth has impacted us.
All right, I got it. Thanks, Brian.
Yes, ma'am?
How many stations were there in this district before the cutback?
That's a great question. There's two things. There was 8 stations, but they had 2 personnel in each station. And understand that running 2 personnel in engine companies is a tremendous liability. Tremendous liability. And this is why. It's because you have the most senior person on the engine. They operate the engine, and you have the firefighter is sitting. So they have to drive the engine, they have to pump the engine, and tell the firefighter to do something with no oversight. So the 3 is we have what we call the engineer or chauffeur, and their job is to make sure they get the point A to point Z, manage all of the equipment, and they get it to the same place, and the firefighter and the captain go and do the duties. You don't want to have the least experienced person going out. So the very first change that we made was it was a staffing to get from 2 to 3 because it's also division of labor, it's safety, and a bunch of other areas. So that got us really down to 5. And as the revenue continued to decline, then we also cut additional stations. So the stations we have, the 8 stations we have that are shuttered right now, is the one here, Station 58, the one in Byron, Knightson, and Bethel Island. And in the build out, the way it works is this, is that the plans show that the city of Oakley needs 3 stations, the city of Brentwood needs 4 stations, and the unincorporated areas need 2 stations. So right now we're working with the city of Oakley and Brentwood to build Station 2 in Oakley and Station 3. Station 2 in Oakley and in Brentwood. And the service, and that's the thing, is the station that we have on Biggsville Road and the population that it serves, you guys within the system are in better shape than a lot of other areas. And I want to drill this down too because I missed this completely and it's a critical point. I need to encourage strongly that folks would stop looking and thinking that the degree of protection is defined by a station location. Because here's the deal, last time you looked at it, you didn't see a station running down the road. Our resources are running so hard for time and distance that the greatest protection anyone has at any given time, and this builds in the speed and weight of a response, is where our resources are at the time of an incident. So if we have a vehicle accident at Dicovery Boulevard and Highway 4, and we have 2 engines and a battalion chief, we have 1 engine available, and a structure fire pulls in Brentwood, Discovery Bay has the best protection because they had 2 engines and a battalion chief sitting here in Discovery Bay. That is why resources in the system are critical, because the speed and weight of where we are, the stations are secondary. The number of resources in your system are going to give you a higher probability for protection. The station locations are secondary. Our members are out on the road a majority of the time. There's a lot of times we go by our stations, there's nobody in it. It's because they're running. So stations are secondary and they're nice, but your level of protection is really gauged by where resources are at the time of a call when they come in. And if we had an engine here tonight, you guys would have the best, coverage within the district. So it's just very important, and that's why, because again, the community, this is a community approach, we're a fire protection district, we are a system. And we need all of the communities to come together and think about it as a system and not just about a community. And I'm having the same conversation with Brentwood, and the same conversation with Oakley and Bethel Island and Knightson, and saying it is about getting resources into the system, the speed and the response where they are. We are strategically placing them within our system. Discovery Bay averages between 9 to 11% of our calls. That's Discovery Bay and Byron. It's doing 9 to 11% of our calls. 85%, 80 to 85% of all of our calls are Oakley and Brentwood or unincorporated areas around. Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory is less than 1%. Bethel Island is a lower percent too. Yes, ma'am.
So what is this station called?
59, the one that is, that was 58, that was station 58.
No, the one up there, so that's called out somewhere else.
I'm sorry?
What is the people in the station in the convicts that are called out somewhere else, not here?
Then that's the thing. If there's a residence or structure fire in Oakley, they're there. But we had most of you most likely heard, we had the condominium fire, we had the 500 acres, we had 12 separate fires. And they're believing that, again, it wasn't, they're believing that it was a chain and drag or something along those lines. They weren't able to clearly define it, but it wasn't from PG&E, it wasn't from someone said it. It started actually in Alameda County. They came down Morgan, we believe they came down Morgan Territory Road, went up Byron Highway, and the patterns are there. Yes, sir.
Chief, there's been a lot of talk in the past. I've been to a lot of meetings over there about return to source. A lot of the some of the cities are convinced that if they put in any more money, that it should only be benefiting them because they're putting in the money. Can you reassure us that that in fact is not the direction you're going?
Absolutely.
No. That's important to us.
Oh, it's super important, right?
You give $2.6 million.
Yes.
Oakley gives $2 million.
Understood.
And they're almost 3 times our size.
So listen, transparency is really important to me. So those are conversations in every community. Because every community I talk to, they want to give funding to the district and they want the resources to stay there. And the thing is, it's a system. We have talked very clearly in the city of Brentwood of saying that, like, we build a station in Brentwood, whatever it is, revenues go into the system. And the resources go where the calls are at the time, and we service the area, we triage the calls, we do what we can, when we can. And anyone that's going to do business with the district, with board's approval, it is going to be a system approach. No one of the communities, Knights and Byron, Bethel Island, Marsh Creek, no one is more important than anybody. And so the answer to your question is, when we had the fires in Byron and Discovery Bay and all those areas, all of our resources were here. And there was no one in Brentwood and Oakley and Bethel Island because we had our resources here. And vice versa is when you guys go into Oakley, then you don't have a fire resource out here. That is why it's imperative. Again, but the only reason our units get pulled up there, and we do, we have a move up and cover plan. And I do. When our 2 engines in Oakley and Brentwood get called out and they're on calls, we move the engine to 59 up. Why? Because 80+% of our calls happen in that area. And it's just playing the numbers and statistics and trends, and we look at time of the days and we move our resources around. It is not a static system, it's a very dynamic system. And that's why the misconception of saying a fire station equals my level of protection. To address your point exactly, saying you have a station right down the street, that doesn't mean anyone's there. And the reason they get pulled out is because our areas that 80% of our calls are depleted. And we have to move our engines centrally to be able to respond. The more resources we have keeps them in the area of which we used to have what's called first due areas. And now we're moving around so much that all of our jurisdictions are first due. Because who knows, you'll be first due wherever it was. Our Brentwood engine was the first due engine to the condominium fund. Because we had a 1-year-old patient that was having respiratory issues, and Station 59 on Bixler was on a medical aid, and life is priority over property. And our members got there, and it was through the roof, and we had 2 homes affected, and we started getting the 3rd, and they stopped it. We wish we could have done better, but they did a good job with what we were presenting. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, just team effort. I just want to make sure that all our
we can't work in a system to where we have resources that are isolated in one community. We're a system. We're a system. Okay. So let me conclude with this, and I just want to, again, right now we're getting our affairs in order, we're building a plan. Please watch for the survey. Come to the July 19th. We'll come back out to you later in the year to give you an update, to let you know what that looks like. Look, I hope that you all were informed and you got a lot of information here today, and I know that, sometimes that is hard because it doesn't have the right answer. I thank Discovery Bay, I thank Supervisor Burgess, I thank all the cooperating partners. I thank you, Mike, for helping facilitate this. It couldn't have been done without you, so I do appreciate that. And I thank all the board members for taking the time to be here today. Look, we're just continuing the conversation. I'm accessible to you. I do thank you, and I want to serve you and do better. So if there's something we're missing, let me know, and we'll continue moving forward. Please engage, participate, be safe. Thank you for your time.